Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Daniel Calderon, and welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. Today I have a good friend, talented actress, Conni Miu. How are you? How's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. So
Yeah.
Connie, you and I, it's been a while since we last spoke. We worked on a project just when the lockdown ended for Ontario, a project called Act of War. And it's been some time, I'm so grateful that it's finally completed. And, now it's past post-production. We're ready for our release. This is why we're having our conversation today. And do you remember this project, or have you been doing so many in between that you kind of forgot about this project?
Well, I like pulled up the script again today and I was reading it and I pulled up all my notes and I was like, oh my God, I write too many notes. So I was like, I'm not going to read all that.
Yeah.
But I refreshed myself. I
Oh,
got a
okay. Yeah,
general
of
idea.
course. Yeah. Well, I know with
Yeah.
actors, right? Especially when the lockdown was lifted, a lot of my friends' auditions has just been coming like nonstop. And, sometimes like we forget about like the roles or the experiences we went through. But that day was quite memorable for many reasons, especially how fast paced it was, as you remember, and just like the time we had. But great friends that I've made on set, including yourself, and great people like colleagues I've interacted with and I learned from in the industry. Would you say the same for yourself?
I mean, yeah, every set's so different. Sometimes you meet people you'll never see again too, as well. It's
That's
kind
true.
of
That's very true.
a funny thing where they come back at full circle like years from now and you're like, oh my God, you never know.
Yeah, and honestly, thank God for social media, right? Because that's how we've been like kind of
Yeah.
keeping in touch and staying connected. Just posting like a little hint, the font title of basically Act of War, and getting everybody hyped up. So I'm so happy that you still share the same enthusiasm because we're excited to share it. It'll be releasing by the end of the month of November. So having said that, I'm a co-producer on this project as well as a director and a writer. My co-producer is Abil Michael, and I believe you guys are friends and former classmates at an acting school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
generally. I mean, we haven't ever taken a class together, but we both trained at EVN Studios with Earl, and it's just such a community there that you just kind of end up running into the same people in that circle in that school.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of knew of him.
Knew
Yeah,
of him. Okay, I
yeah.
understand. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to know. So now getting into this project, how were you approached about the project? Like, how did this come on your radar? Active War.
I'm trying to think. Everything was so long ago. Um, I think it was super casual. I think he just kind of just reached out, did one of those. Hey, I have a thing. Are you interested? Take a look at the script. Let me know. Yeah,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
And you kept in touch, whatever. And that's how it is, right? You always kind of remember who we worked with and who we crossed paths with. And like you said, like you either will see them again and or never see them again. Um,
yeah.
and then when you do and you finally make magic, that's the important thing. So that's great. So when you got the script and you read it, what kind of drew you into it? Like what was the reason for coming on board?
Well, first off, I think it was very well written. So that's
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really, it was a short, 5 pages. It had a nice little ending that, was open, that you could, I know you were thinking of if it's just going to be a short film or if you can extend it. It was just very well written. That first thing really drew me,
Hmm.
as well as, it's a different kind of character than I've gotten a chance to play. So just, I mean, she's playing with guns and I've never played with a prop gun, things like that, just trying to get
Yeah.
that kind of experience, and sort of that practice. And, she's got injuries, prosthetics. That's a whole different layer of the acting. Um, that kind of taking on that physical life as well as, the emotional life. Yeah, just kind of all those things I've never really gotten a chance to put into practice. And I was like, I got to do it. Yeah.
Well, I'll be the one to say it. You made one badass of a performance, and I really do mean that because the inspiration that I was going for Active War is I kept voicing to you guys was Last of Us. It's a video game on PlayStation, and I imagined your character like an Ellie, right? You wouldn't think it that she has all this fire in her, this rage, but when you start speaking and the mannerisms in which you like talk to the character, like just going through the footage when I was editing, and just the way you would enunciate the dialogue, There were many times like you said it perfectly where I didn't even have to like chime in or anything like that. Obviously we had takes here and there, but that's granted when you're on a film set. But there was a lot of times, especially again, because I reiterate how the short time that we had, you executed exactly like how I envisioned the character to be. Obviously we'd want to do more. Yeah, obviously we'd want to do more with the character, and but in that time frame, like I'm so happy you complimented the writing, because that was so important for me, because it was dialogue driven. If you think about it, and when people see it, it takes place in one location. So the way in which you speak, how you speak, the exchange between these two characters, it's kind of like world building. You want to kind of create this atmosphere of this post-apocalyptic future, and that's basically what the story is. So that's really exciting to hear. And working on like prop, have you worked in like this kind of genre before, or this is the first time?
I've worked in this kind of genre in terms of like classwork, just like exploring things like assassins, killers, all that stuff. But it's so different when you take it from a class setting into, an on-set experience.
Yeah.
So that would be my first on-set experience with a character like this. Yeah.
So you worked it into theory, but now like it was a much different transition when you actually put it into practice. Is that what you're saying? Like
Yeah,
when you said in the
kind
class?
of. I mean, yeah, like we would get scenes like that in class that we'd have to analyze, kind of work on the backstory and the mannerisms for someone of this kind of nature. She's a killer, she's a badass. But I think when you take it on set, there's a bit of a mind game as well that, you go, okay, don't mess this up. The camera's on you, there's a pressure. And so kind of finding a way to tune that out and just focus. I don't know, it's on set in class, class is just like, well, whatever. If I mess
No,
up,
yeah, for
it's
sure.
class. But
Yeah.
on set, there's a certain different kind of pressure. So
I
I
don't know
don't
if it
know.
was
I
my
don't know what
yeah, no, no, I think I know exactly what you're getting at. Like, I don't know if it was my impression, but you were very, is that your method, like your style? You're very like focused in on like when you were like very in the moment. You know how like in between takes, sometimes like people like break character, or they just like, make small talk until like we continue the scene. You were just very dialed in. Is that something that you take on like for your roles? So you make sure that you don't miss a beat? Or is that what you were kind of
Uh,
like drawing back to?
I don't know. I think it depends on the character. Obviously, if it's a comedy, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
for
break
sure.
character. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
light,
yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying like I'm not trying to give stuff away, but I'm
No, no,
like
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
there's in such an intense, especially in the beginning, in such an intense emotional state. It's kind of hard to stop and go. So I think just naturally, that's just kind of how I responded. But I don't know. Sometimes it changes. It's hard to say.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. No, it's the definitely the context of the story. I was going back to more so like the idea of like the pressure and being on set and things like that. Because for myself, like I'm like outside of the work, I'm very like likable. I like to joke around, and then as soon as like I'm on set, I don't know why I just go really serious and focused, because I know that if I break out of that mindset, I'll get very distracted and I'll just like lose my train of thought. So I was just curious if you have that same kind of like mentality when you're on set. But again, it's also like given with the context of the genre. We don't want to give too much away, but it is like a thriller action
Yeah.
kind of, right? Yeah. So it has like a post-apocalyptic setting, as I mentioned. Um, but looking back, like I think that's important too, right? In creating an ambiance, right? Because
Mhm.
we all needed to feel like tension. We all needed to feel like there were stakes at play. Um, it couldn't be taken as lighthearted. Um, like the opening scene, like not to give too much away, but you're wounded, right? You're out of breath, heart palpitations, things like that. And I remember you like talking to me in between a take and saying, "Wow, like that took a lot of like energy," right? Because we did
Mhm.
a few takes on that, right? Different angles and things like that. Um, and you really sold it. Like that was another thing I want to say, like the body language and things like that. Like I can only imagine like the toll it takes to get to that place. How was it getting to that place for the character of Sarah? By the way, we're referring to that Connie place. Like how did you how did you get to that place, and how did you approach the character?
How did I get to that place? I definitely did some research on kind of I think it was a knife wound. So I
Yeah.
remember looking up like knife wound injuries, like how that would hurt, how that would feel, how it heals, stuff like that. So I just kind of got an idea of like, okay, how much pain that would be. And then it just, I think before we shot, I think I was just like closing my eyes and just kind of really trying to will my body to kind of feel that. And I think it's just, it gets so exhausting, because I think if you're able to trick your mind and your body into actually feeling that, the adrenaline goes through your body. You get all the same like endorphins, all the same like chemical reactions as if you were actually injured. And
Yeah.
I remember after the first take, I was like, oh my God, that's like a lot. It's like such a load of energy that you have to put into it. So,
And exhaustive too, right?
yeah,
Like
it was
mentally as well, right?
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a lot. And then to have to keep over after every take, you keep being like, okay, you're still in that same place. You're still in that same place,
Yeah.
even though you're like, it's been an hour, surely. Like,
Yeah, I know, right?
you know,
No,
like,
for sure. Yeah. And again, and that's the thing, like given our like budget and like, obviously like our crew size, I always think to myself, like the fact that they do these projects, especially when it's a bigger budget and like it's a whole day of just doing that take, right? Or doing a scene where it requires you to constantly be like you're in pain. You know, it's mesmerizing, right? Like that the actors um, have to take that much toll on not only the physicality but their mental state. And like you said, like just that hour, it was taking a toll. But imagine like working multiple hours in it. Like let's say this was like
oh
an
yeah,
active war feature film, right? Because
yeah,
my imagination as the writer, that scene that was just a snippet, but I would go like full force, like highly detailed, highly dramatic, of like how you would really be feeling, which
hmm
again takes takes a toll on the actor, right? It requires a lot of energy from them, but nevertheless, yeah, it was. I'm just thinking about the scenes now, like going over it and like how that whole setup was a big thing for me. One of the biggest things that I started working with, experimenting with, because of this project is lighting, and I think lighting served a lot too of like the emotional drama that was going on. Did that help you in your performance, like feeling that tension, that pressure in the character?
yeah. I think, every time you take something on set and you're literally in the space, it does definitely add another layer of believability for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And out of curiosity, what was the interest, other than you mentioned already quite kindly that it was well written? What was the interest to play the character of Sarah?
Hmm. I I think there was just a lot to explore, a lot to research, just new things that I'd never learned before. I spoke to Beal about it. He said the kind of the history of the character was being an assassin from a clan. So I definitely did a lot of research into different types of assassins. Like I was trying to figure out, is she an amateur assassin? Is she an expert assassin? So those are kind of things that I'd never explored before. And I really just wanted to, I don't know, just do something new, kind of learn new things.
Yeah. And I like that I like you're very professional like that. And you take your work very seriously, where you go beyond and research the character. That people don't realize, like um, those steps go a long way when you're actually like executing and performing the role. And what I'm getting at is like, even though it was a short film and we can only tell so much in that snippet, uh, the idea was that it's supposed to be mysterious. Like you're supposed to ask those questions, like who is she, where she come from, and things like that. And even when you write a feature, I should mention, like you still should always have those questions answered at the back of your head, even if they're not explicitly said, if that makes sense. Like as a director, if we were on a feature, like as a director, as the writer, and you as the actress, I would tell you, how I like see the character from birth, kind of like even after the story, right? So you kind of can
Mhm.
get a better context of where she fits in that specific timeline, right, in the story. So that's really cool, Connie, that you took the extra step and researched the character. That's always fun. Um,
Yeah, I was like looking at my notes. I wrote, what is it, 4,500 words? What's that, like an essay? I wrote
wow,
more,
that's amazing.
I wrote more than I ever did in school. I was not,
Oh, there you go.
I
Yeah,
hated
yeah.
essay writing, but yet I do it for
I say,
acting all the time,
yeah.
no problem.
And hey, what's funny, like, back to the writing is, I would always get the worst marks, like not the worst, but I was just always kind of like average, like in the B's. Sometimes the odd time I would get in the 80s, but essay writing was excruciatingly hard to write, just to get to that place. Yeah. But creative writing, yeah, any day, whenever they said make a story, I was just like, boom. And, not to boast myself, but just to show you the contrast, I would get right 75s in essays, and then I would always get near perfect in like creative writing, like
Yeah.
one off, 90%. So I can definitely relate to like, yeah, when it comes to note taking on something you're passionate about, you'll excel in
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great. Like I said, it's been a while since we last spoke, with the whole experience of being on set and working together. It's the first time I worked with you and as with me. And I told you, like, when we last kind of spoke, is looking forward to doing more projects whenever our paths cross again, if they will it, right? Like you said, the reality is sometimes you only see this person, see the person like maybe that's the last time you'll ever see them. But the industry is so small. People don't realize that you will come across another creative individual on a project you're working on, or maybe directly or indirectly, right? Eventually. But before we go, I want to know, like, what lessons did you take away from working on this project, and from the experiences, like the cast, the crew, the story?
Yeah, I would say I definitely learned a lot about what I need to ask for as an actor. I think, with like we talked about, the scene, especially in the entrance, was such an emotional, intense moment, and definitely learning how to pace myself, and as well as being aware of communicating, especially with like you, like the director, being like, how many more takes are we going to have of this? That way I can pace myself.
Yeah,
So yeah, that I think that really gave me the that kind of lesson of like, okay, you have to communicate, be in communication that way when things are, there's only so many takes in your body physically to be able to pull that off. How do you pace yourself and how do you communicate that? I think
yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
top of my mind, but I don't know. I can't remember much else.
No, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And that's like, I think everyone that they like, that I speak to after the shoot, we all like have lessons, because that's the whole point of doing these projects, right? Why we create the shorts is to learn and get better as artists. So when we one day are on a feature, or we land a big role, we're prepared, we're ready. And a lot, as a director, like there's a lot of things that I've learned that day as well. It's like speaking to, like, as you said, like about pacing. Communication is a big thing for me, especially on like set. And that's something that definitely I would like to exercise more, just on letting everybody know like what's happening in the scene, and also, like you said, with the pacing of takes, like why are we doing another take, and so forth, right? So forth. Also, another thing is like coverage, right? Letting the actors know like if the camera's on them, because that makes a huge difference as well. So just like it's always good to know where mistakes have been made and where they can be improved on. And yeah, that's what makes for becoming the best version of yourself, right? As a creative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to thank you again, Connie, for coming on the podcast. This is one of those short ones that I made, but this is purposely because I want to endorse our accomplishment in making this film, Act of War, along with my friend Abil Michael. He's the lead actor in this film as well. And yeah, post Act of War, set in a post-apocalyptic future. Tells the story of Sara and Marcus. They have an exchange about basically a questioning on whose side of the war are they on. And I'm excited to release this. This is going to be at the end of November for everyone listening. And yeah, any last thoughts on this project, Connie?
No, I just want to say congratulations, on releasing this and finally getting through post. I know that's always a bit of a push for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, go watch Active War.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And I'm excited for you guys to all watch it. I know Connie's itching. You've seen some stills, right? Have you seen some snippets?
I've just seen some stills, but I've not seen any clips yet. So
Not any clips. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Like we said, when we say short, we emphasize short film, in that if you see a clip, you might as well just see the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, yeah. Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.